That's a
It's
distinct
fine.
possibility.
They'll deal with it. Surely. What kind of tea are you drinking?
Oh God, what do I have? Republic of Tea. They do a couple help old guy go to sleep blends, so it's one of those.
One of those sleepy time teas? I
Yeah,
get
yeah,
it.
yeah. Which is fine. I think it's -9 degrees where I am right now. So
Oh,
yeah, anything that can warm up even a little bit is probably for the best.
you need it. Yeah, I've got a mug of chai with me right now. I feel you.
Yeah, that would be better.
Would not help the going to sleep after this, though.
No.
Also, I do want to just check before we start as well. We did have a request to like just record the call so we could
Oh
post it
yeah,
on our YouTube because we are an international book club. So we have a bunch of people in Asia and Europe sleeping right now,
yeah.
but they
No,
were
thanks
also
for
very
asking.
excited.
Yep, feel free. That good to know. But yeah, go ahead.
Awesome, thank you. Don't want to
Might
record
only
you
change
without your
one.
consent.
I remember I did one of these a little while back, and they were asking about, like movie or TV possibilities. And I said, "Is this being recorded?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "Well, then there's nothing I can tell you."
I have nothing to say to you legally. Thank you.
Exactly. Oh,
Not all of Europe. I stayed awake. Good
that's awesome of you.
evening,
Thank you.
Jelena. We have a question from her later, too.
Cool. I see the little some of the people have numbers like 2 out of 100, 20 out of 485. Are those your reading goals for the year and how many you've read?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Some of them go crazy. We had someone
Yeah.
with 1,000 last year.
480, 485 is just an insurmountable goal. I just finished my third for the year, and it's just like, are you kidding?
I'm in like the biggest slump of my life right now. So seeing other people be like at 15 books already, I'm like, I'm so proud of you. I wish I was
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
All right, we'll start the intro in like 2 minutes. I think that gives
Okay.
everyone enough leeway.
Yeah.
Oh, see, someone joined just now. Perfect.
And my goal for the year was not to have just a lamentable TBR pile in Jan or in December because it just you look at it and you're like, this is just ridiculous. What are you even doing?
That's so real. I don't want to look at my
Yeah.
Goodreads TBR.
Oh man.
That's that's not for me to know anymore.
Yeah. I was doing a book signing probably about a month ago, and sat next to this other horror author. We hit it off. We had a great time signing books, talking about how we talk about our books and everything. And I bought one of his books and was raring to read it, and it's still just sitting here. That's just embarrassing. That's just you lied to somebody.
No, I feel you. I got an arc for my favorite book series. It's the third in the series, and I've hit a
Hmm.
slump, and I'm like 3 chapters in. I know it's going to be a 5-star book.
Yeah.
Is it finished? No.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
It is most certainly not.
It will be one day, and that's the point.
That's the important thing.
As long as my review's in by next month, we're good. All right, everyone. It's 5 minutes past, which means it's intro time. So, hi, everyone. Most of you have never heard me speak before, but I'm Coffee/Sam, your social media and also event admin. We are joined by Kimmin, who is a new event admin, and also by the lovely Mike Bockoven, who is the freaking author of our horror long pick this month and was gracious enough to reach out to us on Blue Sky and asked if we wanted to do a Q&A, which was amazing. We are
Yeah.
thrilled, pun
Hello.
intended, to have you here, Mike.
I, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for letting me worm my way into your little community. It's I always love doing these if for no other reason than it gets me a chance to talk about books, and any day I get to talk about books is a good day.
Amazing. And for those of you in here who may not have had a chance to start the book yet, without any spoilers, don't worry, I'm not going crazy. This FantasticLand is a book set in 1970s at an amusement park during the aftermath of a devastating Florida hurricane and told via the perspective of first-person interviews. So it's really cool, really interesting. There might be some like brutal
Thank you.
teenage tribes, some gore, a whole lot of horror, whatever. So
Yeah.
do make sure to add it to your endless TBRs while we chat right now. Please, everybody, do it. And also for everyone here, I do want to shout out his website, which is his name and then .com. If you want to find his other works, also his short stories, he's got a blog over there. If you want to get to know more about Mike, that's his hub. Oh yeah, Kimmin linked it in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you.
And one more time, we do want to thank you, Mike, for joining us tonight.
No, it's great to be here. Quick correction. It is a contemporary book. Not it's not set in the 1970s. I think the there's been a weird game of telephone with the log line for the book because it starts since the 1970s.
Mm.
Fantastic Land, blah 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 blah. And you are by far. Please don't feel bad. You're not the first person to do that. I've had a lot of people, not a lot of people, but a few people message me saying, "I thought this was a period book. What the heck?" And like, well, not yeah. So
I will take
it's
it up with
gotten
Amazon myself.
yes, it's an Amazon issue at this point, and I don't hold out a whole lot of hope, but
Goodreads, it's
always like to
a.
mention it.
Actually, it is set in 1970. I don't care. That's crazy. Surely they'll fix that. Surely.
Oh yeah. Well, climate change is a theme, so
Exactly. You get it. Oh, Annie does have a question. Do you have any books translated in Italian?
excellent question. So far, actually, I think Fantastically, if it was translated into Italian, that would be the only one. I I believe I have seen an Italian language translation. One of the things that I find endlessly fascinating about the publishing industry is that they just don't tell me things. So it might very well be in your language of choice, and myself as the author would not have been made aware. I didn't know there was an audiobook until people started messaging me about it. So it's one of those sort of things. So I can't give you a definitive answer other than yes, I think I've seen it in Italian.
Awesome. Well, there you go, Annie. Yeah, Annie
And
lives in
apologize.
Italy and speaks Italian, so anything that's
Wonderful.
translated into Italian is perfect for her.
Nope, I have a very good friend who is preparing to go live in Italy for a couple of years,
That's gonna be so
and
fun.
I'm going to go visit him.
You're gonna eat a lot of good food.
Hope so.
Perfect. Well, Mike, we're going to go ahead and get started with an icebreaker question just so that we can get to know you on a bit of a personal level before
Okay,
we
hit
delve
it.
into your book.
Got it.
All right. And this one's just a personal one for me because at the beginning of this stage, you said you were drinking tea, and
Yes.
that did spark my curiosity. Do you have a beverage of choice while writing?
While writing, that is a good question. Usually it depends on when I am writing. Is when I feel I've been most productive, even though I'm not, because it's probably the least harmful thing I drink that's not water. I will occasionally do cola, and if it has not been outside the realm of possibility for me to grab a dark beer or two and see how that goes. And usually it's not the best, the whole right drunk edit sober maxim that does not appear to work for me. So tea is when I think I'm at my best. Tea or water. Yeah.
I like that. That's a great question. Yeah, tea is definitely my beverage of choice when I'm reading your work. So I'm glad that we can connect on that level.
Cool. I live in a house of girls. I have two daughters and we have three dogs and they're all girls. And I'm the only one in the entire house who can stomach tea. The rest of them are just like, oh, this looks and it smells so great, and I just can't drink it. It's like that's fine. More for me.
I love to hear it. I'm an everything drinker.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Everything drinker, everything eater. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move into the questions everyone's been waiting for. I know. It's the ones you all told us to ask.
Okay.
So we've compiled some books, some questions from our book club members who have already finished, as well as some others that we've come across. So
Okay.
this
Do
first
I need
one,
to worry about Do I need to worry about spoilers at this point?
from what I've gleaned, I most of these are from people who have already finished your book.
Okay.
But I think most of them are coming from a writing and like a you perspective rather than like a spoiler of the book perspective.
Wonderful. Okay. I can roll with that. Just
Yes.
didn't want to have anybody accidentally get to, not that it's a terribly spoilable book, but I get your point.
You can always be like, and shut your ears off right now.
Yeah.
So Gina would like to ask, well, and also has some compliments thrown in.
Oh,
She says,
Gina.
I really enjoyed your book, and I didn't think that I would due to the interview format. But I think you achieved in giving the readers just enough information to put an image together, while at the same time leaving enough out to keep me wanting more. During the writing
Wonderful. Thank you.
process, was it difficult to keep questions unanswered? And how did you decide what to include and what to leave out?
Great question. Thank you. The answer is that, so I'll preface this by saying I'm a discovery writer, which means I very loosely, if at all, map out the story that I'm doing. If anything, I have an ending that I'm running toward. That was not the case in Fantastic Land, strangely enough. I wasn't quite sure it was going to end. And one of my beta readers really saved my bacon because I did not end it the way I ended it. And she kind of hit me upside the head and said, well, you need some sort of climax in your horror book, idiot. I was like, okay, thank you. Um, but in terms of what to leave out, the further I got into it, the two things that kept me excited and writing, because this is my first novel, and this was more or less me proving to myself that I could do this sort of writing. I do a lot of other kinds of writing, but this is something that I had never done before. What kept me going was the connections between the stories and how to play those, and then those dovetailed very naturally in my mind into what to leave out, right? Um, in a lot of the things that I pay attention to, in life, not necessarily in media, but in life, you'll get half a story, and then you'll go to someone else and get half a story, then you'll go to someone else to get half a story. So if I did my job relatively well, that was what it kind of felt like, is that people are obviously leaving things out. You're getting senses that people have their own motivations. You decide for yourself who is more unreliable, but everybody has a little bit of unreliability to them. Um, it wasn't it was what kept me coming back to answer the question. So in terms of being difficult to decide what to leave in and what leave out, not necessarily, because I enjoyed the blank spots quite a bit. And I'll tell you what, and this is not a judgment on anybody, but some readers don't really like blank spots, and they'll let you
Mm-hmm.
know. They'll tell you that. What do you mean this isn't a puzzle box? It's like, oh no, the authorial intent was for the answer to not be there. I apologize. So I hope that gets close to answering the question.
I think that does. That's amazing. Luckily, this server is a bunch of unreliable narrator lovers, so you're safe.
Awesome, cool.
You were safe here.
I had a guy the other day write and said, I enjoyed reading your book the first time through, and now I'm going to go figure out who the warthogs are. And I wrote him back as gently as I could, and I said, uh, I really appreciate it. Thank you for giving it a read. It really means a lot to me. I'm not, I can't promise, I can't tell you how to read the book, but the authorial intent is that the answer is not there. Please do with that what you will. And he gave that a little heart. So it's like, I think I handled that okay. I didn't want to squash his dreams, but like, I don't think the answer's in there. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a couple people reread it for this too, so they got that
Oh, awesome.
experience.
Cool. Yeah. I have gone back. I've listened to the audiobook more than once, but I don't think I've gone back and reread it. But yeah, there are, other because once you edit a book, your editor, a good editor, will make sure you're done with that book forever. You know,
Yes.
but yeah, I'm pretty sure, I didn't put any secret ciphers or anything like that in there
This time.
this time. Yeah, yeah.
That is great to hear. Yes, our members really did enjoy your book. And we have
Awesome.
another compliment and another question from our member, Nell. And she says, I really enjoyed how the book tells the reader what happened in the beginning and then uses the interviews to explain how we got there. And we want to, Nell and us want to know, why did you choose to write the book this way?
Great question. I'm going to back up a little bit and say I appreciate that because I'm working in the horror genre,
Mm-hmm.
and I have noticed I'm part of a bunch of different, groups that do horror books because I'm always kind of on the lookout for recommendations and making connections and those sort of things. And I've noticed there is a pretty, and this is not to say anything negative about horror at all. In fact, I've got a shirt that says "Read more horror," and then in parentheses it says Stephen King doesn't count. That's not a slam on Stephen King. He's the water in which we all swim. But there are just so many great horror authors doing such great work right now. But my point is, a lot of them really need to be grabbed right off the bat and have stuff happen. And then the other major criticism of the book is, oh, this all happened too fast. The kids wouldn't do this, quite as quickly. And my hopefully not glib but realistic response to that is, well, horror stuff has to happen in my horror book, eventually.
Mhm.
So kind of balancing that, and you can argue in absolute good faith whether or not I was able to balance that, between keeping people interested and people not interested. But why did I choose to write it that way? Two big reasons. One of them is I come from a journalism background. So I was a community journalist for 7 years for a newspaper that had a circulation of about 40,000. So not like a huge type of publication, but big enough that it kept me fairly interested. And one of the things I always very much enjoyed doing was trying to capture somebody's cadence or little pieces about that person that distinguish them from every other person that's giving a quote to the newspaper that day, right? If you
Mhm.
can get their vocal tics in there, if you can get, you know, you know, he said while he played with with a squishy toy on his office desk, just anything to kind of make that differentiation. That was something I really enjoyed doing. So this allowed me to make it up, as opposed to having to have it actually happen. But the other reason was it lent itself to this particular story. And I don't think I'm anyone will be surprised to say I've tried to go back a couple times and write in that style. And I think it has to be a rather particular sort of story that unfolds in a particular sort of way for it to work. And I learned that, I think, through a lot of painful half-finished novels sitting on my laptop somewhere. You know what I mean? It's the
Yeah.
the epistolary thing. I think only works, at least for me, and the whatever talent level I possess, only works for me in like a very small handful of cases of stories. And so this was one of those stories where I think it worked. And also, like I mentioned earlier, it was the first time I'd written a novel and I didn't know any better, which kind of helped out a little bit. I've tried to go back and do a little bit more traditional novels since then, but I really do enjoy this format. I think it's a lot of fun to write, which is what I kind of need to do to get myself down to my office and up my keyboard.
Any inspiration is good inspiration as long as it keeps you
Exactly.
typing.
Yes, I think that's it. Just anything to get you down there is valuable, very
Yeah.
valuable.
And it worked out really well.
Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing how well the first one worked out, and then of course, you try to do other novels, and it isn't met with that level of success. It's like, oh, so maybe I just kind of had a one hit, which is fine. I'll take it, every day of the week, but that's fine.
I believe that you were not a one hit wonder. We have a question from someone in the audience, too.
Okay,
This is from Jelena. She said,
thanks,
and of
Lena.
course, it's leading with a compliment.
Well, that is so. Yeah, I'm gonna come back here every day at this point. You won't be able to get rid of me.
She says, "This is the first book in a long, long time that I had to start again immediately after finishing. Thank you for writing it.
Cool.
One of my favorite
That's
aspects
awesome.
of Fantasticland was telling the story completely through characters, and I think you did a wonderful job giving them their unique voices. Do you have a special process when writing characters? And what would you say to an aspiring writer as advice on how to make characters come to life on the page?" I know you
Ooh,
kind
good
of
one.
talked about it a little bit, but it fits right in.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. Um, is anyone here? So for the aspiring author, and your mileage may vary on whether or not you like these artists at all, but in the when was it? This was probably the early 2010s. Brandon Sanderson and a bunch of his friends did writing excuses. Is anyone familiar with that podcast? It was a 15-minute long podcast, but they did probably 7 or 8 seasons of it. And each season was just invaluable sort of stuff from character building to the publishing industry to self motivation to dealing with reviews. I mean, it just covered the entire spectrum, and it taught me most of what I know about the industry, right? Other than the experiences that I've had in it, which was a little different. And so when it came to creating characters, the one thing I heard on that podcast that really stuck in my brain is that every character, uh, if you had a silhouette of them, you would know what they look like from their silhouette. And it's the writer's job to create, especially when they're speaking, kind of a vocal tone that is evocative of that silhouette, right? So you want someone to be able to read a paragraph of a character speaking and be able to identify who that character is. And that was the idea that I went into Fantasticland with when I was writing. It's like every one of these has to have some sort of silhouette to them when they're speaking. And then when you do that, or when I do that, I tend to assign, you know, uh, people to them. People in your life, people from niche art that you consume, people from big art that you consume, all that sort of thing. So I don't think it is cheating at all to uh, say this is you know, let's pick someone at random. This is like a Josh Gad type, or this is
Mm-hmm.
just having someone in mind like that, and then imbuing them with whatever it is that you need to imbue them with. But I don't think that's a bad starting point, is to kind of have that outline in mind, and then fill it in as best you can as you go. Can I tell a quick funny story about that?
Yes.
Okay, so the Glenn Guignol character, the guy who leads the freaks in Fantasticland,
Mm-hmm.
I I patterned his vocals off a very specific dude whose name was Glenn Hetrick, who was on the monster movie show Face Off. I don't know if anyone has ever seen it. It was something we watched a lot in my family. It was a reality show about
The
on the
special
Sci-Fi Channel.
effects makeup.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they got this big burly tattooed guy, and he speaks very clearly, but in a very distinct vocal tone. I don't want to do an impression. I had very, very little to do with the audiobook and didn't talk to the two people who did it, but the person who did the audiobook totally did a Glenn Hetrick impression when he was doing the character. I'm like, yes, it
That's
worked out.
amazing.
I was able to psychically communicate through writing that this is what I was doing, and the guy picked right up on it. And so I'm gonna, you know, get his permission and give him a hug if I ever meet him.
Yep, Martine just said, I just looked up Glenn Hedrick, and yep, that's the character you wrote.
Yeah, isn't that him? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I stole his vocal pattern. I'm not ashamed about it.
Good.
I love that. And speaking of identifying characters and shaping their attributes while you write, we have a question from one of our members, Knight, about a specific character.
Okay.
So as she asked, she says, all of these characters are so unique and interesting. One that really stood out to me was Brock. He's a very
Mhm.
complex character and super interesting to read about, especially towards the end. I'm
Thank you.
curious, like him. Was it from real life, or did he just appear in your mind when you were writing this story?
Fantastic. Thank you. So I wrote this linearly, or in a linear way. And the thing about it was I built him up before I ever met him. So, so I already had these characters going, ooh, Brett Backney, ooh, Brett Backney, and it was very, spoken in hushed tones and, the
Mhm.
pirate monster, Fantastic Land, and all these things. And so when I got there, there were already a set of expectations. So he had to be, I had basically written him before I had written him at least part of the way, because he had to be charismatic. He had to be at least reasonably well spoken and intelligent, had to be someone that someone would follow. The thing that I toyed with and ended up not going with in favor of something else was from personal experience. So in some sense it would have been kind of easy to make him a scared little boy at the core, right?
Mhm.
That would have been and you could make the argument and in good faith that that's what he is. uh, my thinking when I was writing him is that he was not that, that he was something else. And like, most people, I grew up, I'm 47. I graduated high school in 1996. I dealt with, you go to public school and you don't deal with people who are just kind of, for lack of a better term, just kind of mean all the way down, right? And don't feel one way or the other about it. And you can assign a bunch of different words to them, but I think everybody knows one or two of those people. And so that was kind of my personal experience pulling in, is that okay, so he's got to be charismatic, he's got to be strong, he's got to be well spoken, but what else is he? And I decided that at least my attempt was to make him mean all the way down. And I hope I got there. But if there's a different interpretation, again, I can't tell you how to read the book. It could be 100 different things, and each one of them is valid.
All
I
right,
love the
great.
kimmin click clacks.
No, we have a big doc of all the questions, and as you're talking to us, Mike, I think of more questions to ask. So I'm really
Cool.
trying to narrow it down of what we should ask you, what we want to know, because all of your answers are just so intriguing, and I just want to do a
Oh,
reread right now.
oh, cool. Well, I hope so. If I'm going on too long, please tell me to be quiet. That is totally
No,
totally
No,
we're
fine.
a
I
group of
love it.
yappers, so you're safe here.
Cool.
Truly.
All right, and I'll give it over to Coffee.
Okay, so this is from Lamia. I think I just butchered her name. Anyways, so sorry. I apologize. Love you so much. The author's note mentions that Jake edits down the interviews into a more narrative form. When you were
Mhm.
writing, did you have questions for each interview in your mind that the reader doesn't get to see? Did you draft them close to how we see them, or did you originally write them like Brock's and then later edit them into a monologue?
Man,
Relatedly, what was your
yeah,
process for keeping each interviewee's voice straight?
those are great. I've never been asked that before. That's cool. Um, so doing being a journalist for 7 years, and it's been a long time since I was a journalist, but some things you do just kind of through muscle memory, and you're able to kind of keep in your brain through repetition, was kind of the cadence of how interviews go, or at least how interviewing when I did it went.
Yeah.
My wife was a journalist for 14 years, and she had a different style than I do, and was a better journalist than I am, to be honest with you. But I remember and just kind of have infused into my brain how that interview um, cadence went. So that was how that came about. Now, the questions that I was asking, sometimes, yes, I would jot them down, but just kind of in a notebook. That's how I write, is I have my laptop or my iPad and then my notebook right next to it, just in case I need to sketch things down to remember later. And that was the case with this. I don't think I ever put them in the actual manuscript, so I don't think it was like like that Brock chapter. I wanted that one to stand out for a couple different reasons, which is why I did it in that format. Um, I wanted that one to have a little bit of heft to it and to have stuff in it that would have been harder to get across just straight in a straight monologue, right? I
Mm-hmm.
wanted the interactions to be a little there. I wanted his answers to be a lot shorter when they began and for somehow to represent that. Um and him just kind of monologuing would have been wouldn't have worked nearly as well. But I think the main thing that I had there was the cadence that I just beat into my head through 7 years of, city council meetings and church soup suppers and all the rest of the of the things I covered in that community. So that's where that came from. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say about, other than the rock chapter. I think there were questions. I think I edited that one down pretty severely. I think it was initially maybe about half as long again as it was in the published novel. And my editor from Skyhorse kind of took the axe to that chapter in particular and cut out some darlings I wish hadn't gone away. And I wish I remembered what they were, to be honest with you. I need to go back to like 3 computers ago and find that manuscript. But I
Release the
remember that
mic
one being
edit.
cut down. No, no, no. The editors are a lot smarter than I am. I usually
The mic
figure.
joke edit.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it released the embarrassing Bockoven edit. Yeah, that's how it would go. Like, oh, this isn't nearly as good. What's he doing? Yeah. But no, I've never been asked that before. It's a good question.
They had incredible questions, truly.
Yeah.
We have another one from Rez, who is the one you were talking to on Blue Sky. They had an emergency,
Okay.
so they couldn't be here tonight, but they are very excited to watch this back. Another reason we're
Cool. Hey,
recording.
Rez.
They asked, Lord of the Flies was obviously very much an inspiration for this novel. What was your experience rating with that inspiration in mind? And what other novels or real life stories helped you like inspire Fantastic Land?
Ooh, that's a good question too. Okay, I'm gonna do. I might go long on this, so please feel free to shut me up. So, yes, Lord of the Flies was a definite touchstone. And I love that book. I still love that book. There are parts in that book that I think stand out really, really hard, including my favorite bit is at the very, very end when the adults show up and say, "Who's in charge here?" And the
Mm-hmm.
person who had been causing all the chaos kind of stepped forward but didn't and chickened out in the face of authority. Basically, I love that. But so I'm going off on a tangent. I hope you follow me. So David Lynch just died, right?
Yes.
And I watched a behind the scenes thing with David Lynch once, where he was sitting at a monitor and he's looking at what he had just filmed, and he said, "Oh, that's what I meant." And I remember at the time being a young man, maybe 16, just getting into movies, thinking, "What an idiot! What is he even talking about? Why would you write something and shoot something and get a bunch of actors together and build a set to not know what you're talking about? Is he a moron? That sort of thing." And it wasn't until I started making my own art when some of the obvious stuff that just slips in there almost unnoticed by the author actually became a thing. For
Mm-hmm.
example, and just to give you an example of how not thoughtful I am, the warthogs are an obvious allusion to Lord of the Flies that I didn't draw a connection to Lord of the Flies immediately. I was just working in the genre and thought, okay, what's a cool thing I haven't seen? What's something that would be menacing? What's something that would be threatening? Um, I have a little bit of experience. My father-in-law's had pigs for a long time, so I knew a little bit about them. And then someone pointed out, "Oh, what a great allusion to Lord of the Flies!" And I thought, "Oh, that's what I meant." You know, it's
Oh.
yeah. So it's one of those things where sometimes it's very overt and sometimes it's not in terms of what you're putting together. So yeah, even as an author, I might not be. Some things I did very intentional, but even even now looking back on some of the unintentional things I did, I get a little embarrassed. But
It just means
to
that
the
that piece of work stuck with you, even in your
yeah,
subconscious. Good
I
for the
think you're right. I think it
artist.
means that it's in there. Yeah, totally. Um, the other piece of literature, and I need to get the guy's name right, so I might be rifling through the bookshelf in a second. That most directly pulled from Fantastic Land was Dave Cullen's uh, book about Columbine, about the Columbine massacre. It's where I stole both the structure of Fantastic Land, because if you've never read that book, it has just this amazing structure where it bounces back and forth between three different time frames. One of them is the immediate aftermath of the shooting, one of them is before the shooting, and the other is video footage of the shooters.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very harrowing book, obviously, and not a light read by any stretch of the imagination. But just the way those three threads collide at the end of the book, it was just dropped my jaw. It was just, this is an incredible piece of journalism, an incredible piece of writing. And that it was shortly after I finished reading that book that I started Fantastic Land. I'm like, okay, so what can I take from this in terms of structure and in terms of there might have been a character beat or two in there. Um, it's an exceptional piece of journalism, and that was probably the thing that I think most influenced it. But yeah, Lord of the Flies, Columbine by Dave Cullen, and then just oodles and noodles of genre stuff. There was an aspiring writer in the group, and so I wanted to throw out there, that's my one bit of advice for aspiring writers is, I I never stopped reading her, never stopped watching her, never stopped
Mm-hmm.
being part of that thing. And that is, there's this cartoon I saw once where it's a 15-year-old wearing a horror shirt that says, "It's not a phase, mom," and then an old bearded guy saying, "Oh God, it wasn't." You know, and and that's
I'm
me.
still
It's like
there.
I'm still there, exactly. It's like, and I'll be a horror guy till I keep breathing.
It's not a bad place to be. So, but
No,
speaking
I like it.
speaking of the other pieces of literature, um, do you have book recommendations for the class?
Sure.
You can also say no, but so how our book club works is as a whole group we all nominate books that fit a theme and the rules, and
Okay.
then those nominations just get vetted, make sure like they hit the right page limit, the theme, the genre.
Hmm.
And then it goes into voting, and so the book with the most votes gets the title of our book of the month, basically. So that's how your book won, and everyone's enjoying it. But if you
Cool.
have any other horror books you want to recommend, we can put them in nominations. Maybe they'll end up as a book of the month. So, I mean,
Fun.
not to add any pressure onto you, but
No, no, it's good. I love talking horror books, so this is cool. There's a go-to, and then there's one I just read a couple weeks ago that I think I'll throw at you. Does anyone in the group know Jeff Strand?
yeah, I think there's a lot of Strand lovers in the chat right now.
Okay, cool. Well, then you go straight down the middle of Strand and say Haunted Forest Tour. That's usually one that you can point. It's going to sound so elitist. I apologize in advance. One that you can point the normies to, and that they're going to have a good time with.
Mm-hmm.
Jurassic Park, but with demons. And it's like, okay, well, people can have fun with that. Um, that's that's a good kind of entry level. How do I want to put it? It's not quite entry level, but like if you like Haunted Forest Tour by Jeff Strand, then you and I have a lot to talk about.
Yeah,
That's
it's
kind
a
of
good
how
bridge.
I frame it. Yeah, it's a good bridge, exactly. The one I just finished that I actually that was both super emotional and had some very mature things to say about aging and grief, and also super gross. Is called The Har by
Oh, yep, yep, yep.
Haar. David, I gotta look it up here. Sodergren, Sodergren. And I just finished that in probably about 2 days and found it delightful. It's about an old woman who lives in Ireland, and her community is being taken away from her by a developer. and then she stumbles across an ancient sea creature with incredible powers, and that sea creature, it kind of becomes a little shop of horrors scenario, and then it gets a lot grosser. But and then he becomes her dead husband, and she has to, kind of reckon with the fact that she's no lady now. And it's like has this fantastic mix of genuine emotional things to say through a character and just absolute ooey gooey gore. And I really did enjoy that one. That was the last, probably. Yeah, I want to recommend this horror book sort of thing that I
Amazing.
read.
Yeah, we have a bunch
So
of
I don't
like
know. I
gore
don't know if
fanatics in the
yeah.
horror club, so those will
Well,
hit.
yeah, yeah. That one was I found it delightful. I don't know if a whole bunch of other people are gonna dig it. I just started Incidents Around the House, which I heard is pretty great,
Oh
and
yes.
immediately realized it was written as a child from a child's POV,
Oh,
and it's given me a little bit of a fit to start, but I think I'm going to get into it. I have a good feeling about it, especially since some of the stuff is already kind of gnarly, and I think if it's going to get worse and a kid is in danger, it could have a real, it could really go places. So I'll let you know how it goes.
good. Please do.
All right. Yes, I know that I am definitely looking for more horror recs, so I'm very excited to read and get to know some of those recommendations like the Haunted Forest tour and the horror that
Mhm.
you recommended.
H A HAAR, yeah.
H-A-A-R. Did I
I'm,
say that
I'm
right?
gonna
Is it horror?
it's set in Ireland, so it might have a very different pronunciation, and I could be totally missing it. That is a distinct possibility.
It's all right. I'm right there with you.
Yeah,
All right. So we do have another question, and this one's a bit of a long one.
cool.
I know it must feel kind of surreal to see the books that you have poured your passion into start getting raved about and put on best of lists.
Yeah.
Is there one moment that really stood out to you as an, oh shit, this is really cool? For example, like the Audible Top 100 horror list or the My Favorite Murder podcast shout out.
Yeah, that was a hell of a thing, wasn't it? Yes, and I have a very clear answer. It was, and I remember where I was when I first saw it, is that when my art inspired other art, and that is to me. I mean, and I know it might sound a little glib when it's like, yeah, top 100 horror books, that's ridiculous. I mean, don't I'm sitting in my
Of all
basement doing stuff.
time.
Yeah. That's I don't.
It was the last
I
part that
appreciate.
went crazy.
Yeah, I appreciate it, but I'm not sure I can take. I'm trying to get better at taking compliments. I'm not sure I can take that one. But there was a guy who did a painting for me of the warthogs, of what he thought the warthogs, and it was really good. He did a really good job. And they're standing outside a hotel. I'm looking at the piece right now because I had it framed and put up on the wall, and it's in the wall in my office right now. And they just did a really great job. And then after that happened, like it was strange, the floodgates kind of opened up. I had a guy write me and say, I designed skateboards and I designed a FantasticLand skateboard. And I'm like, can I buy it from you? And he's like, yes, you can. So I hung that on my wall. I've had people write me fan fiction. Fan fiction. It's fantastic. I I love it.
That's how you know
And
you really
and
made
some
it.
Yeah, someone did their own stuff and sent it to me, and it's like if I could frame that, I'd put it up too. That's the moment for me when I'm like, oh, something happened here, and I'm so grateful to even be a part of it. Is that my art is other people is being spun off by other people, and I can't tell you how gratifying that is. That's just the best feeling in the world.
It's amazing because that is one of the questions I wrote down. I was like,
Mhm.
is it wild to know that you inspired other artists' work with your own art? And you
Yeah,
already
it's my
answered it, but
favorite.
like, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, because and it kind of reshaped my brain a little bit because uh, you just heard me say, yeah, I'm just in my basement, spinning my bullshit out, and hoping anybody reads it. And this guy read it and is doing the same thing, in his basement making, and the skateboarders in his basement making art. And it's like we're all just in our basements making art. And sometimes we get to talk to each other, and that's super cool. Or sometimes we're inspired by each other, and
Yeah.
that's even cooler. it's caused me. It's changed. I mean, this book has changed my life, obviously, but the probably one of the best ways it's changed my life is that it has softened me up considerably to artists. Like I'm a lot less critical than I used to be of art. I've got uh, a B movie club, and you used to, when you're in your 20s, sit around and watch B movies. You're like, oh, this is stupid, haha. And now I'm like, my God, these people went and got a camera and found funding and got their friends together and did a thing, and that is
Mm-hmm.
incredible. Even if it didn't turn out to be like the most amazing thing in the world, they did the thing, and that is like the that's the nut of it. That's the that might be the most important thing you can do as a human. If you just get out there and do the thing. If you're a believer in art over commerce, which
Yep.
I happen to be, and I can prove it because I can show you my bank account statements. But still, the idea that you're out there, as part of a community making art, is just the best feeling in the world.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, like, listen, I watched all the Sharknado movies. I had a good time. Was that
No,
elite art? No. Was it
no,
fun? Hell yeah.
I like to think that if you show me an Antonioni, I can understand it. I like to think that I can understand symbolism and nuance and character and all those things. But if you push me real hard, my favorite movie of all time is Return of the Living Dead.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a Tarman tattoo on my arm. That's there forever, and it's a purpose, and I love it. You know.
Yep. All right, I do have a joke break. I know it's
Okay,
because I've
cool.
been super serious this whole time, so we definitely need a joke break. But I did write down. Be honest. Have your dogs ghostwritten any of your work?
My dogs, if anything, make my work slower
Oh, that's so
because
real.
yeah, they are. I've got a geriatric wiener dog sanctuary at my house. Not seriously. We've got three just very old wiener dogs, the oldest of which is 19 years old.
Oh my goodness.
And his brain is gone, or her brain is gone, but she's uh, his body is still very strong, and she'll come in and just start barking for no reason, and it's like, yeah, that's what my wiener dogs do.
And I saw a picture of like a couple of them, and I was like, oh my god, I have to ask.
Yep, we've got three detectives. We've got Sherlock, Marlowe, and Benoit, and so the detective wiener dogs. That's how they're known when we have to board them. That's like,
Yep.
oh, the detectives are here.
All right, we have a couple questions from chat. So we're
Okay.
going to go ahead and ask those while we have them. Let me find Annie's.
Yes, that would be great. And in the meantime, while we find Annie's, we have another question coming from Lamia.
This is
Yes.
Um,
just
Let me.
butcher Lamia's name
I'm
out.
so sorry, Lamia. Correct me, please. But their question is, did you draw yourself a map of FantasticLand?
Oh, fantastic. Yes, great question. Uh, I am not much of a visual artist. I cannot draw, but yes, I
Okay.
did. I and I don't think this is a very well kept secret that Fantastic Land is modeled very closely after Disney's Magic Kingdom in Florida. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, or at least it was until they changed the layout of the thing. Um, that was how Fantastic Land started. It's a little cliche, but I took my girls to Disney, and we did the thing. And being kind of a natural pessimist, I was walking around the place thinking, okay, what could go wrong here? And and that was and I came up with a decent answer. But Magic Kingdom used to have the big Mickey hat at the center of the thing, and they've since taken that down, and it's not there anymore. But that was the inspiration for the big exclamation point in Fantastic Land was the big hat in the middle, because that it's such an easy navigation point. You're like, you can see the hat from most places in the park, or you were able to before they took it down, and you could just say, okay, let's meet at the hat, and just walk that direction, and everything kind of spiraled out from the hat. So that was the concept of where that came from. One of my failed novels. Well, it's not exactly failed. It might go. You never know. But I wrote a story about a rich person making an end of the world bunker, and trying to create a test group to go in and see what living in it would be like. And I spent a lot of time drawing that out, and then it didn't really turn into anything. So I'm not sure I needed to draw a huge map of Fantastic Land, but trust me, I know what it looks like in my head.
That's great. Yes, we have some members in the chat. Just Martine says that they were actually thinking of Magic Kingdom the whole time while reading it. So it
that's
we can
that's
definitely
good.
see similarities.
Not
Yep, and
Disney, by the way. Any
this is
Disney
being
lawyers
recorded.
listening?
Yeah, this is being recorded, so oh, the mouse is coming for me. But no, it was
Don't mess with
inspired
the
by.
It's
mouse.
actually Universal Studios. Just kidding.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Off Adventureland in Des Moines, Iowa. No,
Yeah, I love that. That is great. Yeah, there it was perfectly mapped out in Fantastic Land. So
cool.
I really enjoyed reading that. We have another question from I saw how
I
Do
you
it
just love
again.
the chat with the GIF of Mickey punching. It's very funny.
that's what we're in for if the Disney company hears this.
Yeah, yeah.
So Lamea, I think I got that right. I saw how you that message of how you pronounce it, Lamea. We have another question coming your way.
They said, who knows?
The question is, you mentioned that novel writing wasn't the kind of writing you usually did. What was the biggest hurdle and the biggest joy in transitioning to novels? Because
Ooh,
Linnea is a short fiction writer working on a novel and is always curious about other people who have made that transition into long form.
yeah, yeah. Good question. Um, I had to basically learn novel writing from scratch. Not that I wasn't reading, not that I wasn't enjoying it, but like if you went back all the way to when did I write Fantasticland? 2016, 2017, somewhere in there, and looked at my Google search history, you would find things like how long is a novel or how many words are in a novel? That really that sort of thing between that and like writing excuses was where I got most of my information. So the what was the hardest part? Um, so I was a journalist for 7 years. I then was the marketing director at a museum for 14 years, worked at a museum here in Grand Island, Nebraska, where I live, and haven't had a lot of a lot of luck at jobs since then. But bounced around a little bit. But writing was always kind of I always prided myself on the ability to adapt to styles of writing. So if I was writing hard news, I was able to do that. If I was writing features, I was able to do that. Column writing, I was able to do that. Press releases, I was able to do that. So I didn't. I don't want to say, especially not on on a record that it's like I didn't find it hard because obviously it's difficult to write a novel. Um, I think the thing for me, like the best feeling in the world was finishing it, and then I was introduced to other best feelings in the world, which was going through the query process and finding an agent and finding an editor and getting my first check for being written for writing I had done, and then that magic moment when you open the box with the book in it and everything like that. Those are
And it has
truly
your
just
name on
like
it.
yeah. I mean, it's not to get too into it, but it's like yeah, that's one of the best one of the times I felt truly truly decent about myself was when you look at that. It's like yeah, I freaking did that. And if I had to inspire someone to do that, the way I talk to other writers is that I and this is so glib, and I understand this is so glib, so I apologize in advance, but I think I would have been okay if Fantasticland had not been published, all over the world. I think I would have been okay if it had been a friends and family and a regional thing, and that I just had a few books on my bookshelf with my name because that was the goal, right? The thing that motivated me to do it, and I'm way off topic here, I apologize, but the thing that motivated me to do it was I think I was 35, 36. I was coming up on 40, and being having a couple books on my shelf with my name on it was always on my bucket list. And you start thinking to yourself, okay, are you going to do this? Is this actually something you want to do? And if so, how are you going to work to accomplish that?
Yeah.
And then it was that kind of serendipity of that Disney trip, and then hearing the right song at the right time and having the right series of concepts and reading the right book. So Jersey and kind of moving forward on those ideas and kind of coalescing into something that got bigger. And so if you have short stories, um, the thing I might suggest is to take those ideas, maybe sit with them a little while, see if they don't combine in your mind with other stuff. Right. So just by way of example, I have a book I'm working on right now that started off as kind of a simple idea that I thought I could stretch into a novel. My agent told me, no, you can't do that. It's not interesting enough. And then I had other ideas, and then I had other ideas, and I was able to fit this piece into this idea, and this idea into this idea, and kind of create a puzzle in my brain until I thought I had something that could be novel length and novel worthy. So maybe think of it that way, that this is a big project, but you've got a lot of ideas. If you're a writer, I know you have a lot of ideas. So go find those ideas and kind of see which ones fit with that, if that makes
Yeah, that's great advice.
sense.
And I mean, speaking of upcoming work, Mike, we're all familiar with
Yeah.
FantasticLand, having read it
Yeah.
for the January horror book. And I mean, there's still time, people. There's still many days left in January. Don't worry. We're not judging
Yeah.
you if you haven't finished it. But you do have three other books, and one of them is coming out this year. So I don't know. Do you want to maybe tell us a little something about it? Give us a little
Sure.
rundown.
Sure. So I had gone back to the epistolary well. I don't mind saying I'd gone back to the Fantastic Land well a little bit, but my book coming out in, I think it's June or July right now, is called Come Knocking, and it's the same reporter. It's Adam Jakes, the reporter from Fantastic Land, is doing a different story. It's got nothing to do with Fantasticland. None of those characters are in it. He's just telling a different story, and kind of starts off in the author's note saying, "Look, I didn't really want to do this again. I didn't want to be the mass casualty guy, but here we are again." And I don't mind telling you a little bit about what it's about. The big problem with it is I don't have a log line right now, but the basic gist is it's a giant interactive theater space, a
Oh.
5-story interactive theater space that started in New York and moved to LA. And then it has a real bad night where a whole bunch of people die, and people who wish the show ill get into the control room and just start messing with all the very delicate things that can go wrong, and a whole bunch of things go terribly wrong. And they did a lot of research about people being on fire and head wounds, and it was
I did see you
it
did.
was
You had to research what, four different types of head wounds for this upcoming
yeah,
book.
four different kinds of head
I read
wounds.
that
Yeah.
blog
um
post.
Thank you. So yeah, it was a good time, and it, people ask me. So my agent says it's basically a cousin of Fantastic Land, and I'm like, yeah, that kind of feels right because it's the same, same style. It's got a few interconnected pieces and a couple of chapters that I can't believe they let me get away with. I was pretty happy about that. My other two novels, one of them is getting a reissue next year, and it's called Killing It, and it's my take. It's me trying to write a Jeremy Saulnier movie where the basic gist is there's a stand-up comedy club. Guy goes a little crazy on the first floor in the basement where the green room is and where the internet doesn't go. All the comics are down there, and they've got to find their way out of the club. So it's a little simpler, but um, it's suspense, and it's got a couple other really nasty little pieces in it too. So I'm pretty happy with that. I have a friend who does who does comedy out in LA, and he said kind of helped me with some of the comedy pieces, and then said, "I'm just always shocked at how just terribly graphic the last couple chapters of your books always are." I'm like, "Thank you, that's good. I like that. I'll take
Thank
that."
you for the compliment.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's my work, and looking like it could be a fun year. I think Come Knocking is pretty fun. I had a good time. Wrote it in about 2-3 months. So
Nice.
I saw in the chat someone saying, "I'm 36 and I had the same dream." Concentration. That's the thing. I made myself a budget. I wrote 1,500 words a day. I guarded my time. I didn't beat myself up if I missed a day, but I got back in and kept doing it. Find your rhythm, but make yourself a budget and see if you can stick to it. That's kind of how I did it and how I still do it. Because after you do the first one and you prove you can do it, my God, it's such a great feeling to know you can do that and that you can go do it again.
That's really good advice. All right. Do we have any final questions? Or shall I start the closing? Start tippy tapping if you have a question.
That sounds ominous. Shall I begin the closing?
I do have my hands in like that evil villain. Like spread.
No one asked who the warthogs are. That's awesome.
I know
Can I give you
they.
another piece of?
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
you can talk all you want.
I was going to say the one bit of writing advice I might also give people is if you create a mystery that you haven't solved exclusively and to completely to your satisfaction, maybe don't put it in print.
When you leave
I
the
know who
open
they are. I
ending
got it.
too open for
I got it.
yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I got it. I know who they are. It's fine.
Surely.
I don't know. No, I'll get it figured.
One day.
I've tried to write a warthog novel half a dozen times, and the cool way of saying it is I don't think they're ready to come out yet, and the not
Yeah,
cool
yeah,
way of
yeah.
saying it is I haven't been able to track it. Both
It's
can be
in
true.
the works.
Yes, yeah.
In the future, down the road, all
Hmm. Hmm.
the good mumbo jumbo. It'll get you through until it's done.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Martine said you'll wake up in a cold sweat one time and understand the warthogs
Oh
perfectly.
yeah. Oh, I've got the. This is one of those annoying things. I've got the ending. I can run toward the ending if I can get past all the rest of it. I haven't been able to get past the rest of it yet. And then you have another idea that comes and takes over.
Hmm.
And then you got to go to work and you got to take your dog to the vet.
Yeah, there's your main project, and then there's that little dust bunny on the side that just keeps yelling at you over
Yeah.
and over and over again, and then all of a sudden that's your main
Oh,
project.
I've got like a chorus of dust bunnies screaming at me at any point because I've got a notebook full of stuff I want to write, and it's I'll never get to it all.
All right. This is another plug for you, Mike. So your
Well,
website's a treasure trove for your fans, but beyond Fantastic Land, where else should readers follow your work and updates? Are you active on any social medias?
yeah, and of course that's kind of constantly changing, because was going to be on TikTok, and then TikTok went away, and then I'll
And
keep
now we have
posting
90
on it every so
days.
yeah, 90 days. Um, so how much do you want to invest in that? Uh, but I've done that. I am at Facebook on it's facebook.com/Bockoven books. And the reason that's so what it is because there's a fantastic woodworker in Arizona who also is named Mike Bockoven. So he beat me to it, and hey, go look at his it's very good.
At least
Um,
he's talented.
so yeah, yeah, he's talented. He's in his basement doing art like the rest of us. So but you can find me there. I do post on Blue Sky on occasion. That's more kind of brain dropping sort of stuff. But if there's big news, I'll put it there. And I don't do X much anymore. I don't do in Instagram. The stuff will show up. So yeah, those are all Mike Bockoven, but Facebook.com is Bockoven for reasons beyond my control.
Gotcha, gotcha. All right, Annie does have a question in chat. She says, "What about classical horror American authors as Lovecraft, Chambers, and Poe?" Annie, do you mean like, are they like a inspiration?
Good. Can you figure the
I
the
think
I think,
you
yeah, we're having
might
a little
having
technical.
technical difficulties right now with why it was. But
I if everyone can hear me read the classical American authors that just crafted. Oh, I had a few words. Always, I have found horror always tends to surprise like it's more than 50 to 100 old. Uh, within the past November and the Divine Comedy. Oh my God, that's fantastic. That's really cool. For Halloween, I read the Telltale Heart in the store, and it was just the greatest, one of the greatest gifts I've been given. Say, hey, want to come talk about horror lit and then perform the Telltale Heart in a book's Halloween? I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. I'm kidding, and I'm not much an actor, but it's so great to kind of dig in and really spend time in one of the classic short stories and try to understand it as best you can. That was a lot of fun. Dracula. Dracula slaps, man. Have you read Dracula recently? That's
Mhm.
it's a epistolary book. That's the thing that killed me about it. Frankenstein, amazing. Those are best. So I do enjoy going back to the classics on occasion.
Classics are great. I know that I just bought actually Dracula
Yeah,
the other week because there's so many beautiful book covers that I just feel like I have to collect them all.
I like that.
And the
Just get the
classics
best.
always get the pretty re-releases.
Yes.
Oh, they do. Yeah. One of the weird things I've learned about the publishing industry is that 2% of the books make 98% of the profit for most booksellers and most publishers.
Oh,
It's one of those things where the reason you can buy 700 different Lord of the Rings covers is because that's one of the 2% of books that makes 98% of the profit. And they're great, I'm not crapping on Tolkien at all.
they're great and they're beautiful and they just keep taking my money.
Yeah,
I need
yeah.
to stop buying so many.
I don't know. I always feel good when I buy books and then I come back and I have a depressing TBR pile, but I still have the books. So I think it's a wash in the end.
Don't look at my bookshelves right now.
Yeah. I think we all in this Discord feel that way too.
Yeah.
Also, local library shout outs. When your wallets
Oh
hurt too
yes, love libraries.
much, public library card.
Mhm. Yep, yep. Love libraries.
Yes, always never too many books, just not enough shelves.
Mm.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike, for sharing your insights and experiences with us. And thank you to
Yeah, I hope
everyone
it's
who
worth your time.
showed up tonight. And then also for everyone who's watching this recording. Also, sorry for that robot intermission there when our voices all
Oh, it
started going
happens.
crazy. Um, and before we wrap up, Mike, do you have any parting words or advice to your fans, aspiring writers, random people on the internet
Hmm.
that you would like to leave
Okay.
with us?
Two pieces. One of them is that I think, and I tell people this, if you have the urge to have a book with your name on it on the bookshelf, I think that is worth running toward. I the thing I tell people, like I'll talk to college classes and it's like, how do we do what you do? And the thing I tell them is what I did was I got lucky, I really did. I mean, there's yes, the I'm not saying the book is bad. I'm not saying I didn't work hard on the book. I'm not saying those things. I'm saying being in the right place at the right time in order to find any level of success is probably 70 to 75% luck. And anyone who says differently is probably selling you something. Success like that doesn't need to be the metric. Being proud of yourself in the act of creation is a powerful thing and something not to be discounted. So if you want to create something, I would very much urge you to run at that instinct and to create something because even if it goes nowhere, uh, you've done something honest, you've done something true, you've done something good, and most importantly, you've done something unique, right, to you. And that is invaluable. So I don't know if that is old man babbling, but there you go. I will say that. And then the last thing I'll leave you with is read more horror. My God, there are a lot of good horror writers working right now. So many good ones, man. Your Paul Tremblay's and Stephen Graham Jones and we said Jeff Strand and we said you know, just there are a ton of them just doing great stuff right now, and they all deserve attention and respect and time and page turns. So if you can read more horror, I would appreciate it.
I agree. I was not a horror person until 2024, and then I started watching and reading horror, and I'm having a great time. And
Yeah,
our horror book club's pretty new. It launched like middle of the year last year, and people are having a great time. just diving into the genre. So we're very excited about it.
Cool. Hey, well, thank you guys for having me on today. I appreciate it. It was a great time. And like I said, anytime I get to talk about books is a good day.
No, thank you for your time and reaching out and wanting to do this. This was so fun and so exciting, and I'm so glad that it worked out with very minimal technical difficulties.
Yeah, we're great. I've had them crash and burn, so this works great.
It was a great time. And I know that a quote that we will all take away from this is you saying, being proud of yourself in the act of creation is a powerful thing. Even if it goes nowhere, you've done something honest. And I think that really resonates with me. So thank you so much for giving us that.
I'm glad it does, and it has the bonus that I happen to believe it. So cool. All right. Well, have a good night, everybody. Thank you for having me. And yeah, if someone would send me a link to the recording, that would be cool. I'd appreciate it.
I will. When I put it up, you will get the link to it. I made a YouTube video just for this. Not a YouTube video, a YouTube channel for this.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Better than what I have. So, all right, cool. Well, thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you for your time.
So much.
All right. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
That was a great time. Thank you for joining us, Mike, and all of our audience.
Yes, love you, book club members. Thanks for coming. Thanks for asking all the questions, for being active participants, for being nice human beings.
Yes, that's very important.
Claps in the chat. Can you hear me clapping?
Yes. It was great. This was successful. And I think we will have more horror readers.
Oh, yes. Everyone say thank you, Rez. This is going for the recording.
Thank you,
Rez set this all up. Rez told me to make us a Blue Sky account. Rez handled all the details for this. Rez couldn't be here tonight, but they are the best. So we need some chats for that. Yes.
Yes. And you know what? When Mike's new book drops this year, I think we should have him back.
Just bring him back constantly.
Yes.
Get him back.
I love that.
Huge. All right. I'm heading out, so you guys can all disconnect quietly as well if you want to be free. Thank you for showing up, and good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.